accessible, the best laid plans.
Your book, the best laid plans. Okay.
I'll tell you the one thing that what struck me about what Debbie said. I would like to see The Birth House as a movie. It was the book that made me feel, of all of them, that I could see it as a movie. I was involved in it. But let me just tell you this. What George's point is that I have run into people who have said the only books they read are the books that are on Canada Reads. People don't read enough. We all agree on that. We want them to read. Now, there are some books in this competition, and they are all excellent. I didn't want to read Essex County because I didn't understand that, and I didn't understand why it's on here, and I read it, and I found it very moving. It can't be on a list of, it can't be the primary book that we call the most essential novel, because that's not how we are going to inspire people to read. That's like the new iPod. It may be really neat, it may be the future.
So the fastest selling, and I mean,
it saved. I understand that.
Saved Apple.
I understand that, but we need people to read books.
Okay, hang on a second.
So we have to read.
Let me. Why is?
I think the phrase is we need young people to start reading books, and so I think this book is actually. I mean, I liked all the books as well. I think we all have to say that to each other, so that we.
Because we're going to say it all the time.
But I really did love your book, and I also thought that it was I thought it was funny, and I think it's interesting, and I would love to think that younger people are involved in politics, and it's an interesting way to sort of read in a contemporary way, about politics and stuff. But I do really think that this to write this off as a way to not get people to read, I think is totally incorrect. And I think for young people, maybe older people, perhaps.
Sarah, let me come. Let me come back to that. But just first of all, Ali, why is a book definitely a book that a lot of people are loving, The Best Laid Plans? But why is a book set in Ottawa that deals with the backroom machinations of getting someone elected a book for everybody?
Because this is the stuff that's ruining our lives, whether it's in Canada or it's in the United States or Egypt for that matter. It's bad politics by people who stay in office too long is what ruins our lives. This book is something everybody can read and say, I know the guy. I know the Angus McClintock in this book. I know the one I can call and say, I need you to run for office because you don't have a dog in this hunt. You never want to run again. I'm that person. I'm the guy in Calgary who ran for mayor, who's never been on the scene before and is actually going to change Calgary. This can actually inspire people to do it, and it needs to be accessible, and that's what this is.
Will understand the mayor of Calgary, Naheed Nenshi, and Egypt better if we read that book. So is that the most...
Yes, it does show Ottawa and all its machinations. It's also a book that could lead people to stop caring about the political system. Because the way it works in the book is pretty much like real life. There's one party, everyone toes the line. It's pretty depressing to read. Essex County is a gateway to reading. I love the book. I love the form, but in my view, it is not a novel. And at the other end of the spectrum, I like all these all the novels. Fantastic writers are fantastic, but then we have the other end of the spectrum, a Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist whose whole life is words, making words and stories, and making you think. This is what literature should be. It should be a way to get people to think of things that they don't normally, and think of things instead of things, like iPods.
I've already got just a couple minutes left in this round, or 1 minute left in the room, but I want to get to this elephant in the room that's not such an elephant in the room, apparently, about the graphic novel. So you're already getting beaten up about this. Lauren just said this is not a novel.
Well, it is a novel, and I totally understand why this is putting people off, especially more traditional readers and people who have been reading literature and see it in sort of one classic form. I'm going to use two examples. Number one, not that I totally have agreed with the choices, but you look at something like the Academy Awards that's now including the animated film in the Best Picture nomination. You're not just seeing this as a graphic or as a cartoon film or animated film. You're seeing it nominated with some of the best films, and there's not this this qualification that has to be in a separate category. And I would say the same about books. You're looking at the New York Times book review. Awards and nominations now being given to these types of books without saying, oh, it's the best graphic novel. It's just the best novel.
Can I say something? You're saying, is it the essential book? I think it's a nice book. It really is a good book. But hang on a second. As the essential novel, it's like saying tweeting with 140 characters gets you writing. No, it doesn't get you writing. It actually takes it in the other direction. And I think the danger of that book
is the fear from the panel that if you're only looking at pictures, somehow you're dumbing it down.
I think you give that.
But have you looked at some of these
Debbie, isn't it
but I think you have to do both.
Isn't it? I mean, I found this to be.
Is going to the MoMA in New York and looking at a painting, is that dumbing it down to look at something?
No, but a painting's not the essential novel.
I read this in an hour and a half.
Is it? All right, hang on.
The whole world today is about the shortcut, and we're in an extremely
dangerous place. Let me bring
an hour and a half to read 100.
These illustrations probably just to do one panel, I'm sure takes him hours and hours. I mean, it's probably as much effort and emotion goes into these panels.
Let me just bring George in before we end this round. First of all, it took you an hour and a half, but you could spend a lot longer with the book for sure, right? With that.
The Bone Cage took me only a few hours to read, and some probably classic novels are under 200 pages. Catcher in the Rye.
There was, I mean, I went into Essex County thinking, graphic novel, this will be, I found it incredibly poignant and moving. Do you, is the storytelling not important?
The story to me was obviously really good, and about hockey, it was, the 3 short stories that were in there, I thought it was remarkable and stuff. And the only thing that is hard is, like, what's hard is when I listen to you say that's a novel, but Jeff calls it a cartoon. So you guys really don't have the same view because he calls it like that. So I don't understand that because
sure it's cartoon. I mean the name graphic novel I think has been given by outsiders, by people who want to, you know, feel okay about reading something like this. I mean they're cartoonists. They're amazing cartoonists, but it doesn't make it less.
I'm going to stop you there. I'm told we have to stop. That's all the time we have for this round. Don't worry, there's another round coming up.